Hi, so in this video I'm going to be installing electricity around our property, and this will allow us to power our lights and water heaters that we use at our coops. Last year I made a video about installing underground electric, but it was just at this one coop and only for 2 plugs, and also I dug the trench by hand. And ever since then we've been using extension cords in the trees for everything else, which is not ideal. So this year we decided to just install everything underground. So I'm going to be using this ditcher and dig a trench between all the coops and lay direct burial wire in there and then wire everything up. And I'll do a time lapse of that process and also show the steps of installing the plugs and everything else. Well, that's about as much as I have time for tonight. I've gone about 200 feet and I'll resume this in the morning. So it's the next day now, and yesterday I dug about 200 feet from this coop all the way down to there, and now I'm going to resume the trenching process. So I finished trenching at this coop right here. There are a couple spots that go off to where plugs will be at different parts of the coop. And I just need to clear out this little bit with a shovel, and then I'll lay the wire in the trench so that if it starts to fill in, the wire will already be in there before I move on to the next section. So I have the wire laid in the trench all the way from that coop over to this coop. And I have not filled it in all the way yet because I'm going to do that at the end. For now I just put rocks on top of the wire to hold it down at the bottom of the trench. The next step is to start trenching from the other side of this drainage ditch all the way to that far coop over there. So I finished digging the trench from that coop all the way down to this one. It goes to a couple places where I'll have plug boxes, one over here and one there. It actually took a couple hours in real time. The next step is to lay the wire in this section of the trench before I go on to dig in the next section. I got a couple rolls of wire here, and I'll also be putting some of it through a conduit that goes through the drainage ditch over there. In this section of the trench where the wire has to go over a drainage ditch, I'm first going to feed the wire through this conduit and then put the whole thing in the ground. So I finished laying the wire in the trench. All that needs to be done now is just fill it in, and then there's also one place I need to splice down there. But before I do that, I'm going to finish digging the last section because we only have a limited amount of time to use the ditcher. Okay, so I'm here at the next section of the trench I'm going to be working on. It's going to be from that power pole all the way over to those coops out there. And I'm just going to do it through this grass, through that fence, and then along the pasture all the way to the coop. Well, that's all I got time for tonight. I'm going to start again in the morning and go all the way over to those coops. So it's the third day now, and I'm going to be finishing the trenching today. I did this section last night, and I'm going to be going all the way over to there. So it's been a few hours and I finally finished this section of the trench. It goes from the power pole, which is behind those trees, all the way down to these two coops right here. So the power goes to these two coops, and then there's this trench which takes the power over to the peacock aviary. With the trench finished being dug now, I'm going to roll out the wire and then bury it. So this piece of wire coming down from the peacock area needs to be buried in the same trench as the wire coming in from the power pole. So I'm going to do that one first, starting at the peacock aviary, going down this way, and then bury it back. Okay, the wire is now laid in this section of the trench all the way from the power pole to the coop over there. The next step is to fill back in the trench, and we're doing some of that by hand and some of that with the tractor. So today is the 4th day of the trenching project. It actually rained an inch last night, so all the dirt kind of turned to mud. I actually ran out of direct burial wire, so I got another spool and I'm going to connect it just between this coop and this one, and that will finish all the underground wire. Okay, that was the last section of wire between this coop and that coop. And now that every trench has wire in it, I'm going to complete the splices. That way they can all be filled in. These are the splice kits I'm going to be using. They just have a terminal block that the wires go into and then a piece of heat shrink tubing that goes around the outside and keeps it waterproof. And these are the 2 pieces of wire I'm going to be connecting together. With this splice finished, the trench in this pasture is ready to be filled in. Now I'll do the one in the other pasture. Okay, I finished filling in the trench in this pasture, and now it's ready to have the plugs installed and everything else. But before I do that, I'm going to finish filling in the other pasture's trench. Okay, I finally finished filling in all the trenches, including the ones in the other pasture. And now it's time to do what I find to be the more interesting part, which is actually wiring up all the plugs. So I'm ready to install the plugs now and everything else. So I got a bunch of bags full of parts and this conduit, and I'm going to start by putting a piece of 2x4 along the T-post, attach it to that, and then I can screw the plugs to the 2x4. Right here where the wire comes up, I'm going to put conduit down into the ground over the wire, and then that will allow it to connect to the boxes and stay waterproof. The process will be exactly the same for all the plugs I'm going to install, so most of it will just be time-lapse. So this is what it looks like after the conduit and the boxes are installed. I just have them screwed into this piece of wood, and now I just need to wire up the plugs. There's gonna be 2 right there and 1 right there. And this is the same thing I'm gonna do with all the other coops that I ran wire to. So I finished the installation of the last plug, the GFCI, and now it's ready to test. The power's on, and I'm just going to plug everything else into the new plugs and make sure they work. I'm back here at the first coop now, and the power should be on, so I'll plug in the light. That works. And the Wi-Fi extender. And the electric fence charger. And everything's working. When the freezing weather starts, this is where our water heaters will plug in. Now I'm going to wire up all the plugs in the other pasture and finish up this project. So I finished wiring up the plugs at these two coops, and I also did the outdoor splice into this coop where the power comes from and attached the wire into an existing plug right here. And all I need to do now is just turn on the breaker and all these should be working. So the outside light right here, I'm going to plug in to this new outlet. And it works, but it only goes on at night. So I finished removing the extension cords from the trees, and that completes this project. All the plugs I installed are working, and this winter we'll be plugging our water heaters into them to keep the water from freezing. And anyway, I hope you found this video interesting, and I'll see you next time.